Good day, folks, and welcome to review number 50. Seeing as this is my 50th review, I figured we'd do something big. And what's bigger than a Masterpiece Optimus Prime? Today we look at the Toys R Us exclusive MP-10. So, starting off, let's take a look at the packaging. Optimus comes packaged in the Generation style packaging, similar to what we've seen with some of the other Masterpieces, except of course that this is a lot bigger. Majority of the packaging is dedicated to this big clear window on the front, displaying both the figure, the trailer, and the accessories all clearly, so they're very easily seen. There is one odd thing I do want to point out about the way the figure is displayed here. Optimus is kind of in a hunched down pose, and I believe the intent is he's looking down at the open matrix compartment in his chest. For me, though, I don't think this particularly works. It almost looks like he's trying to take a dump rather than focus on the matrix chamber. I think they would have been better off had they just posed him in a more upright, heroic pose rather than this kind of squat pose we've got here. The back of the packaging features several images of the figure in both robot and vehicle mode, as well as the battle station mode with the trailer. And normally I would say there is a small bio paragraph here, but they went huge on this paragraph up here. The typeface is larger than most titles on deluxe figures. Apparently after they put the bio paragraph on the back, there wasn't enough room for the tech specs, so those ended up here on the left side. And on the right side of the packaging, you simply just have a list of some of the features and accessories. So here we have Optimus himself, and there's no doubt in my mind this is a Masterpiece figure. And when you have a Masterpiece figure, they typically blow it out of the water, and they did a great job here again. It's obviously got the iconic Optimus Prime look, and just going off some of the typical joint features you have a hinged and swivel neck joint. You've got the multi-jointed shoulder. You only have a single jointed elbow though. You have a bicep swivel here, wrist swivel, finger articulation, although it's not the individual fingers. The thumb is also not articulated on this figure. But you've got waist swivel, you've got ratcheting hip swivel there, thigh swivel, you've got ratcheting knees, you've got a knee swivel there, and you have a toe joint, you've got multiple jointed ankle there for ankle tilt. Posability wise, it's just a great looking action figure. One thing I was disappointed with in this figure though is just a little bit of the quality on the tolerances of it. I do not have the Takara version, so I don't have a good comparison, but the knee swivel here is very loose. The ankle tilts, the hinge here is also very loose, and this can affect his balance. It can be a little difficult to get him to stand in an action pose sometimes because this ankle wants to move out on you, especially if you're on a smooth surface. Now, of course, you couldn't review MP-10 without doing a review of the original MP-1 as well. Now, obviously, there is a little bit of a size difference here. But as we've seen from the other Masterpieces in the line, MP-01 and Masterpiece Megatron as well, were both kind of oversized when you compare them to the other Masterpieces. And the MP-10 version is supposed to be more in scale with the other Masterpiece releases: Starscream, Grimlock, Rodimus, and of course the MP Lambor or Sideswipe that's going to be coming out, MP Soundwave that will be released later this year. So they're actually trying to focus a little bit on scale here. Some other differences to point out, the obvious color differences. The original Masterpiece Optimus had more of, this is also the American DVD release of the figure. He had more of an orangish red color versus the more true red. The blue on the legs was also a darker blue. The other big difference, and it actually kind of surprised me at first, having been used to handling the original Masterpiece Optimus, was when I picked up MP-10 out of the packaging for the first time. The original Masterpiece Optimus is almost, his chest is just a massive block of die-cast, as well as die-cast legs. So he is one heavy figure. And when I picked up MP-10 out of the packaging for the first time, I was surprised at how light he is, because there is a lot less die-cast in him. I believe the only thing I've really noticed is the die-cast in the feet to help give him a little bit of a weight and stability. But if you're used to handling the original Masterpiece Optimus, it will be a shock for you when you pick up MP-10. So, of course, Masterpiece Optimus comes with a number of accessories. First off and foremost, you have the trailer, which, like the G1 toy, folds out into a battle station. And they have stayed fairly close to the original toy for this figure. You've got the little repair drone up here. You've got roller. You've got the supports that fold out underneath. And it just looks great. There's a lot of molded detail in here. You also get a little Spike Witwicky figure, which he's not too posable, but he's kind of a cool little addition, and they've made accommodations in several places. The cockpit opens up here, so Spike can sit up in here. He can sit in roller. There's a couple other of workstations inside the battle station where he can sit, as well as the cab of the truck of Optimus once he's transformed. In addition, of course, you've got Prime's rifle and the energy axe. If you remember the energy axe from the original Masterpiece toy, you actually had to fold the hand back and it would fit into where that was. This piece actually just fits over his fist, so you don't actually have to move any parts around. It's just an additional piece. Now, on to Optimus Prime's transformation. One of the things that really surprised me about this figure goes back to my experiences with MP-01. It feels as though they have re-engineered this transformation from scratch, rather than just taking the old transformation and tweaking it to fit. While there are certain similarities between how MP-01 and MP-10 transform, I believe that mostly has to do with the fact that it's the same character in the same vehicle. And where there are similarities to the older Masterpiece figure, MP-10 really does a better job. Now, being a Masterpiece figure, you expect the transformation to be much more complex than a typical mainline figure. This figure still meets that expectation, but does it in a very clean and purposeful way. Some MP figures, such as Megatron and Rodimus, almost seemed over-engineered to add complexity where it wasn't really necessary. Every step in the transformation of MP-10
seems very intentional. There's not a lot of extraneous movement for the sake of adding unnecessary complexity. Another hallmark of the Masterpiece line is tabs. The front of the truck cab all tabs together very cleanly. I especially like how they use the headlights and the bumper to help lock everything in place. Unfortunately, the aft end of the truck is a little more finicky. You really have to play around with the leg positions to get things lined up properly, and the tabs on the legs themselves require some work to get them to hold in place. Many times when you're pushing them together, they just kind of split apart again. Overall, though, I would rank this as possibly the best Masterpiece transformation so far.
So here we have Optimus Prime in his truck cab mode, and again, Masterpiece-wise, they've done a great job with this, and I will say this, well, I'll show you in just a little bit, but this is much better truck cab than the MP-01 version. But just some of the details you've got here. You've got some fold-out mirrors they put in here. The lines are very clean. It rolls very well. It is a little bit finicky in the transformation, as I mentioned, getting everything to tab together tightly, but that's just being a Masterpiece. But as far as the cab mode itself, they did a great job, and they've added some details that weren't there in previous Optimus Prime Masterpieces, like the lights up here, the side windows, just some nice little touches. But it's a great little vehicle. Now, as mentioned before, the MP-10 vehicle mode is a much cleaner cab mode than the MP-01. Start off looking at the fronts here. You can see there's all these recessed areas and little compromises they had to make on the MP-01 to get the transformation right. And they have been able to re-engineer the figure and get it so you've got a nice, clean front. The same goes when you turn the figures to their sides. You can see the gaps in the panel lines. You can see this kind of funky thing they had to do with the window up here, to make it look. I don't know. I would say it looked like a window, but they had to kind of sacrifice the looks there for the shoulder joint. But then again, if you look at the back end of the truck or the cab here, you've got a lot of the waist area that's exposed on this figure. Some of that's exposed on this, but it does a much cleaner job of hiding it. Hasbro actually went out and did some chrome on this figure too, so instead of having just silver paint, you've got chrome on it. But yeah, and where this figure over here, the MP-01, tends to be a little bit more temperamental, let's say, in vehicle mode. The MP-10 feels much more solid. So there's a quick comparison of the two Masterpiece Optimus Prime vehicles. And as I mentioned with the accessories, this is the first US Masterpiece Optimus Prime to come with the trailer mode. And it kind of tabs in there like that. And as you can see, you definitely get a very classic looking Optimus Prime truck mode. The trailer itself, it's got a lot of molded detail, a lot of rivets on here. The stripes are all molded. The Autobot emblem is molded in. So actually, they did probably as much detail work with the trailer as they did with the figure itself. I just wanted to emphasize a little bit more of the detail of the trailer here. This is kind of what really impressed me, was the detail as far as going to the rivets or screws holding on the bolt for the back doors. You've got clear red plastic tail lights here. They molded a bumper piece. They just went all out on the detail with this trailer, and I think they did a great job with it.
The MP-10 Masterpiece Optimus Prime illustrates how Takara and Hasbro are continuing to improve and progress the Masterpiece line. And at Hasbro pricing rather than import, this is an amazing value. While at first I was disappointed when I heard that the MP-10 would be another Optimus Prime, having this figure next to the original Masterpiece Prime has made me appreciate what this line is doing and is making me very hopeful of things to come. Takara is really ramping up the rate at which they are releasing Masterpiece figures, and I'm anxious to see if Hasbro brings them to the US the same speed. If so, the next couple of years could bring some great things to American collectors.